Sup, freaks? It's your boy Marty here to introduce this episode of Tales from the Crypt. I had the immense pleasure of sitting down with Karim Helmy from the Coinmetrics team. We dove into a newsletter that he wrote for Coinmetrics a couple of weeks ago, diving into nonce data and how it can help us get a better understanding of the Bitcoin mining hardware lifecycle and when new mining models are becoming more predominant within the network. Fascinating conversation. We talked about that, the hash rate index that Coinmetrics is working on, and then just shot the shit about Bitcoin and why Kareem's into this and learn a little bit more about him and his views on the space. I think you guys are really going to like this one. This episode of Tales from the Crypt is brought to you by our good friends at the Cash App. You should know all about them already, but if you don't know about them, let me tell you about them. They're letting us do many things. They're helping us stack sats, send sats, receive sats, DCA into sats, so you can set up an auto buy within the app now, so you can set it and forget it. And on top of that, they're making sats the standard. Highly recommend you start denominating your Bitcoin purchases in sats within the app. They made it possible now, and it's the unit bias goes out the window. You're stacking millions of Satoshis instead of fractions of a Bitcoin. It feels more powerful that way. On top of the stat sacking, sending, receiving, selling if you have to, and DCAing into it, they've enabled the ability for you freaks to stack slivers of stonks if you want to. All right, you can buy as little as $1 of your favorite stonk. If it's too expensive, you don't have all the money to buy one whole stonk, you can buy as little as $1 via Cash App investing. Because this is connected to your bank account, or Cash App may even be your bank account, they're doing many things, including offering you freaks account numbers and routing numbers. You can start direct depositing your paychecks into the Cash App as well. And because it's directly connected to your bank account, or it is your bank account, there's no 4 to 5 day waiting periods. You can start investing today. Cash App Investing is a member SIPC and a subsidiary of Square. As always, if you haven't already downloaded the Cash App, what are you waiting for? There's $10 waiting for you out there on the internet in the Cash App servers. I don't know where it is, but it's waiting for you out there if you download the app and use the code STACKINGSATS. That's one word, STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10, and $10 is going to go to our good friends at Owls Lacrosse in Chicago. That's Owls Lacrosse. Enjoy this episode with Kareem. I had a pleasure getting to know him.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt, excuse me. A little hiccup there. Here on a rainy Friday afternoon where I am. Very excited for this conversation. This sort of came together pretty quickly. The Coinmetrics team put out a newsletter earlier this week diving into the dynamics of the halving and its effect on mining, and had some color on nonce data and how you can sort of derive the hardware trends in the mining world via the nonce data that exist. I'm sitting down with the person who wrote the newsletter. I'd like to introduce you freaks to Karim Helmy. Karim, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Marty. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. Before we dive into the content of the letter and everything I just described, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to be a data analyst for a data company focused on Bitcoin and other blockchains, and what you were doing before, and why you like to focus on the data side of things.
Totally. So I studied data-oriented subject. I studied stats and machine learning at Carnegie Mellon. Just finished up in May of 2019, and then kind of had gotten into crypto while I was there through some internship that I did at a bank. A coworker was really into it, and at first I thought it was really stupid, frankly. I was like, "What is this? It's just drug money." And then I realized actually it's really cool. It's drug money. So yeah, from there I graduated. I freelanced for about a year. I've been working with Coinmetrics for about a year on a contract basis, and then just came on full time about 2 weeks ago now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so this article was a really fun one to write, and did not really see it going the direction that it went in. We kind of just went in with like an exploratory mindset, and it was cool to see it come out the way it did.
Yes. Yeah, so let's dive into it. What was the mindset when you first went in, and why did it sort of end up the way it did?
Totally. So we wanted to build out a product to track miner behavior. So measuring the inflows and outflows from mining pools and kind of tracking those metrics. In the process, we found out that this is actually like really hard, and that a lot of the products that claim to do this kind of make some wacky assumptions or don't actually provide full coverage. So we figured that as like steps to productizing this, we should put out some research, get to really understand the data before we release it to clients. Along that path, one of the things that Coinmetrics had previously done in a feature by Antoine was looking at nonce distributions for different cryptocurrencies. So one of the things that popped in my head was, what if we segregated these nonce distributions by mining pool? And then from there, it kind of just took on a life of its own. We started looking at which pools were mining blocks with which nonces. What can we use this data to do? And then we found out that it actually lines up pretty nicely. The anomalies in the nonce distribution line up pretty nicely with the occurrence of the dominance of Antminer S7s and Antminer S9s. So we found that we could, yeah.
Yeah, so you have this Bitcoin nonce distribution chart. It looks like it's just a bunch of blue dots on a graph, and you can see particularly around 2016 that some of the areas on this chart become less populated with these nonces. And so before we dive into what that means, maybe let's describe what a nonce is and define what it is and how it pertains to Bitcoin.
Totally. So to mine Bitcoin, miners solve this puzzle. The way that the puzzle is structured is that they are looking for a value that makes the block header hash to below a certain threshold that's called the target. So that value is called a nonce. In theory, the nonce distribution of valid nonces that make you hash to below that threshold, so what's called golden nonces, in theory, they're randomly distributed. So they should look a lot like static if you just plot them out. The really wild thing was that we found they don't do that. And that's what the paper is about.
Yeah, so it seems a little bit non-random. And so are we basically able to say from this apparent non-randomness that some miners are just simply leaving out certain nonces when they go to solve these hash functions?
Exactly, yeah. And we were able to attribute that to certain types of hardware by lining up the timelines.
Mm-hmm. So what? Yeah, it's fascinating. Is this what? So what does this mean for Bitcoin? Is it bad for Bitcoin, or does it just mean that miners are highly incentivized to find efficiencies, and this just so happens to be one of those? Like, what advantage do miners get from leaving out certain nonces on the onset of their solving of this puzzle?
It seems like an artifact that's relatively harmless. It definitely doesn't affect the network as a whole. It's slightly inefficient for the miners who are doing it, and it's probably a side effect of over-optimization on these hardware devices. So, like miners are today almost all mining on the network happens on these like super optimized ASICs. And I mean, these things are really, really like designed to be as efficient as possible. So if they're leaving out these regions, that's, you know, like a non-trivial loss in efficiency that they're doing that. But it's likely a side effect of bigger gains that they were pursuing.
Yeah. And so, and more recently, it seems like the nonces are becoming more distributed. So is this probably the M20S and S17s not over optimizing in that regard?
Yeah, that's what we think it is. So the two chips that we found that had this problem were the S7 and the S9, and they were both Bitmain. So it's interesting that the S17 has kind of phased this out as far as like the M20S. We haven't really detected that in the previous hardware created by that manufacturer. So it's a little bit more expected.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because the S9 was released by Bitmain, and the designer wound up leaving Bitmain and going to WhatsMiner, creating MicroBT and designing the WhatsMiner M20 and M30Ss. And so, it's, to me at least, as an observer and who works for a mining company that uses M20Ss, it would be interesting to see if those white bands sort of return with the proliferation of that hardware, particularly. Like, was it the designer, the actual individual designer of these chips that was responsible for this non-random distribution?
Yeah, totally. And already looking at the nonce distribution, you can kind of see, even today, it doesn't fully look like static like it should. So we're kind of trying to investigate, is there any other anomalies that we can kind of leverage to track this hardware usage? Because it really does, it is a useful metric to be able to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And yeah, and that's another thing that always interests me thinking about mining, especially mining into the future, is do we get to a point, we probably will, due to physics, get to a point where these ASICs are commodified, and how does that affect this distribution, and is there sort of a leveling out of hash rate and sort of more stable difficulty in the future? This is me just rambling random thoughts in my head. Do you have any thoughts on that particularly?
Yeah, totally. I mean, like the dynamics are really interesting. I think it's as I'm sure you know, a notoriously secretive industry. So kind of if you're an outsider, there's not a ton you can see into. But the S9 was really the undisputed king for a while, and we've kind of seen the beginnings of that sort of commodification. And it's going to be very interesting to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, that's as a miner, thinking 5-10 years out, I think at that point OpEx is going to be probably the where all the advantages in the competition for mining are found. Like, who can find the lowest energy and automate their processes as much as possible. And it's fascinating that we're in this weird beginning stages of this network and of this industry, because there are like a lot of inefficiencies that these miners particularly point out and can take advantage of if you design a chip correctly. And so another thing you guys are working on is like a hash rate index, correct?
Yeah.
What's the? I mean, this is something that's become a more popular topic in recent months, is the need for hash rate futures and derivative products to help miners hedge. Would this be something that these products could leverage basically to help produce an index or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to settle derivatives, you need a really high quality data source, right? And that's what we're looking to provide. So we are an independent data provider. We think that we can give really the best reference points for these contracts to settle against.
So how would you go about creating this index? What would the inputs be? What would you be looking at, and how would the final number be articulated or be found?
So hash rate isn't actually directly observable on Bitcoin. This is kind of one of the things that gets lost in translation a lot. You can only really tell hash rate from the frequency with which blocks are being delivered, and from the difficulty on the network. So we have our estimation techniques for this. They're relatively standard, but then we develop these hash rate indices on top of that. And these are a relatively commoditized product, but the important aspect that we're delivering is that we are experts in the industry. We're very used to providing these sort of data feeds, and it integrates with our other products. On top of that, we have a product that we're calling Observed Work, which kind of leverages these hash rate estimates to be able to give something that's a little bit harder to game if you're, say, a high frequency trader trading directly ahead of the settlement.
Yes, I keep going back and forth, right? Because the hash rate and difficulty futures, particularly, like how can they be gamed and who can game them? More importantly, it's becoming more apparent, like who really has the leverage here: the ASIC producers, the miners, the mining pools. Who would be like? And that's as somebody who may need to interact with these products in the future. Like, it's just trying to think of attack scenarios. Who do you think would benefit more from the inside information, like mining pools that are able to leverage the liquidity of a hash rate future and potentially engage in a short and turn off some of their machines, or stop their pool, or with the hardware manufacturer knowing the lead time for the delivery of the hardware, be able to play some games as well with that?
Both. I would say that the pools probably have more consistent access because hardware delivery times are a little bit infrequent. But definitely, if your clients are expecting hardware to come at a certain date and they're hedging accordingly, and you kind of stall on delivery, it's a reputational risk, and I'm not sure that the hardware manufacturers would necessarily take it, but it's definitely something they could do. I mean, if you want to, if you want to do something that's a little bit less malicious, or less overtly malicious, what they could do is they could actually deliver the hardware early and cause the price to surge, or the hash rate to surge.
Right. That's again going through these attack scenarios, like the incentive, especially like somebody was floating the idea that mining pools could crash the price and the hash rate if these FTX hash derivatives become liquid enough. And it doesn't make sense to me, right? Like, especially pools acting on behalf of the individual miners that point their hash towards it. Like and Bitcoin is their golden goose. Like, would an upfront payoff that you're able to acquire from shorting in futures markets even be worth it if you're going to kill the golden goose? Like, is that short-term profit worth it in the long run?
I'm not sure. Frankly, I don't think there's really a way to be sure, but I think one interesting source of inspiration that we can look at is oil markets, where you do actually have these oil companies trading futures. And it's one of those few markets really that exists where there's an overt cartel that controls it. So I don't know, I'd be surprised if every time OPEC announces that they're cutting production, they don't long oil futures right before it, at least someone on the team isn't. It's just too much money on the line, frankly.
Yeah, the OPEC unannounced difficulty adjustment could come in any time. Right. I mean, we found that out the hard way a couple months ago. Russia comes and says, we're not cutting production. Saudis get pissed off. They're like, all right, we're going to ramp it up and try to bleed you dry. And the American shale industry dry too. And then those futures market, I'm a believer that these future markets aren't going to kill Bitcoin or disrupt the incentives because, like you just mentioned, they exist in other markets too. And they do provide miners with the ability to hedge and maybe fund future expansion, right? Especially like if you get like a hash forwards contract where you sell hash up front for cash, it allows you to expand your operations.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's trade-offs, right? But I don't consider them too problematic. The biggest concern on my end is that you do really want miners to have high capital expenditures if you're, from the perspective of securing the network, because you want them to have a vested stake in the success of the network, and operating expenditures just don't really do that. The ability to hedge kind of changes that dynamic a little bit, but it's where the world's headed, and like it or not, the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think proof of work, specifically proof of work mining, is the future. Our thesis at Great American Mining is that it's actually going to create crazy efficiencies across energy markets. Even though people think Bitcoin mining boils the oceans, it's actually going to help the environment. At least we believe in many ways. Do you have any thoughts on POW being sustainable into the future, or do you think about proof of stake networks or anything like that a lot too?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about both. I'm a fan of proof of work personally. I think the environmental concerns are concerning, but not a big deal. Like it's given that so much of Bitcoin, its energy consumption is localized towards, excess places with very inexpensive excess energy that would basically just get thrown out anyway, or, like you mentioned with Great American Mining flared. So given that's the case, I don't think it's too concerning. But obviously, if we live in a world where you can consume energy or not consume energy, you'd rather just not for any given thing. So it's not really Bitcoin specific. But I don't think we have any reason to fully buy into the fact that proof of stake has the same guarantees as proof of work today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Paul Stork has made some good points that proof of stake may not even be less costly or less environmentally friendly than in proof of work, due to the capital needed to acquire the stake within the network and stake it. It's interesting. It's we'll see if Ethereum can transition to 2.0. I'm not as confident as some people are. I think they're gonna have some trouble doing that, but we have Tezos and other blockchains to see if that can work in the wild. But again, I'm very skeptical of proof of stake. I think proof of work, like you mentioned, the capital expenditure needed to be deployed to get the hardware and actually protect the network creates much better incentives.
Yeah, it's even like, even proof of work coins that have CPU mineable algorithms kind of suffer from this problem, right? So or even those that do require specialized hardware, but just there's enough of it available on rental marketplaces like NiceHash, they do experience these types of attacks. So as a result, I mean, like, liquidity is usually your friend, but in this case, liquidity is not your friend, and you want this to be an illiquid asset.
Yeah. Fascinating. So what you're on the data side of Bitcoin. Like, do you think Bitcoin's an imperative technology for the world right now? You thought, hey, it was stupid drug money, and then it's like, oh yeah, it's stupid drug money, we need it. Are you a believer in the freedom enabling properties that Bitcoin presents, or do you believe they exist?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. I think it's one of those things where, like, its ability to function on a marketplace like Silk Road is testament to its core value proposition, which is that it is censorship resistant money. Like, if we wanted to test out censorship resistant money, we wouldn't, do it on the most uncontroversial thing possible. We would do it on the most controversial thing possible. So when you see these markets using it, that's just proof of Bitcoin working. So
yeah, it seems like we're about to get another big test with Iran coming out, the Iranian government coming out and say that they're going to support Bitcoin mining industries specifically.
It's absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I mean, those same properties like do hold in cases where free speech is needed. So like the Human Rights Foundation takes donations in Bitcoin. I know like WikiLeaks is largely funded through that. It's really crucial, right? Like we need to protect censored activities. And sometimes that's speech, sometimes that's drugs, sometimes it's, like going outside. So
Right. Yeah, no, it may disturb people that it helps the drug dealers and the Iranian government or entrepreneurs within Iran that are being incentivized by the Iranian government, but it also helps the refugees, the people in Venezuela trying to accept and send money between their family members, and it is this weird mental block that people have that if it helps one type of user, we should shut it all down, but it's really a bad way to look at, like, should we stop everybody from drinking water?
I mean, maybe. No, I completely agree with you. Like, there's this conflation of legality and morality that I think happens in a lot of people's minds. And I think honestly, like, I'm not condoning anyone breaking the law here if this does come up in court or anything like that. But I think they seem relatively uncorrelated in my mind. There are plenty of immoral things that are perfectly legal and plenty of super illegal things like free speech in a lot of countries that just are a moral imperative.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it play out right now in China and Hong Kong. The Chinese just announced that they're, what was it, a national security act that they're grandfathering Hong Kong into, like, without even having them vote about it in the legislature. It's fucking crazy times right now. We're going to see a bifurcation in the world between the countries that protect free speech and liberty and those that don't. And actually here in America, it's I don't like the way the trend's going. Like, I think Bitcoin's imperative specifically here in America because we actually are not going down the right path right now in terms of liberty and freedom of speech specifically.
I completely agree with you. Like, Corona has just been a massive mask off moment for all of the would-be dictators of the world. We're seeing it in Hungary. We're seeing it, to a certain extent here, and it's a concerning trend.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about Apple's latest update? Are you gonna update to their latest iOS?
I think I missed that one. I've been kind of in the lab a little bit. Can you catch me up on that?
They have latest iPhone iOS has it embedded at the protocol level, like contact tracing. So they're going to allow apps to use Apple's API to build contact tracing functionalities to alert you if you've been around somebody who has corona. I'm sure this will not be abused by anybody. And it is I go back and forth. I mean, I think it's terrible, but it's already here. It seems that coronavirus is being used as an opportunity for these would-be dictators and authoritarians to basically create an excuse to be more blatant with the tracking and the surveillance of the U.S. citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. It's not even, in my mind, it's not even the concern of tracking. Like, you're already being tracked all the time, always. It's the normalization of it. I think if you look at like all of those New York Times articles that use cell phone data, you see how granular of a perception anybody who has an app on your phone already has. But it's kind of, in a way, nice that people don't really know about this, because once you start making it normal and them like accepting it, you're really like normalizing them to this thing that is severely unnatural, which is the ability of the government, an app developer, your cell carrier to track you all the time, always.
Yeah, and it happened after 9/11, like the TSA. I hate the TSA personally. I think I always feel violated when I have to put my hands up in that stupid scanner, especially after it's been proven that it really doesn't do anything And that got normalized pretty quickly after 9/11. It's still here to this day. And all these measures are apparently temporary. And this is only temporary for the coronavirus, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. What is it? May 22nd. Apple released that update, I think 2 days ago. So May 20th, 2020. It'll be interesting to see what they're doing with this stuff in May 20th, 2030. What happens to it. And it's scary, man. Like I say it a lot on this podcast. We have two paths we can go down. We either get the Chinese surveillance state exported to the West, and it seems like people in our intelligence agencies would love that, which is scary to think. Or we build a world where we build distributed systems where you really hold your data and have agency over that data, whether it be Bitcoin or the pictures that you hold on your server and stuff like that. And it's weird to think that maybe we fucked up the internet in its first iteration and have made some pretty critical design flaws in terms of having our data siloed on these servers owned by large corporations and governments.
Yeah.
Another rant here.
No, it's definitely rough. And I think part of the most upsetting factor of it is that all of these problems are solvable. Like there's nothing fundamental stopping us from having people storing, their photos locally. Memory is really, really cheap now, but we were just not the first ones to the punch, and the UX is significantly worse, and convenience trumps everything. So,
yeah, that's why Bitcoin makes me more optimistic too. I think Bitcoin's going to be a hardware revolution as much as it is a software revolution. Like running my own node and interacting with my own node has really empowered me and actually helped me see a vision forward where, all right, it's a little rough around the edges right now using like Nodl or MyNode software to connect apps that Bitcoin leverages. But once you do and you have it up and running, it's pretty cool to think that, hey, this little box in my living room is holding all this data and I control it. It's not going through Amazon. It's not going through Google. They can't see it. It's running through Tor. The vision's there. It's just whether or not the will be behind it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's all here though. Like it's all the fundamental problems have been solved. And like, obviously you're not going to run all your payments through Bitcoin today on the base layer. Like that just doesn't make sense. But if you're ever doing something where, you think you have plausible reason to believe that you're going to be censored or otherwise, like affected by financial intermediaries, do it. It's there.
Right. And I saw you getting a little discussion with Hasu yesterday about scaling. Like, what do you think about the state of Bitcoin as a network and especially at the protocol level and second layers and scaling? How do you see this playing out moving forward?
I generally buy into the vision of Bitcoin banks. I think that having this settable, so just sorry to backtrack a little bit. The idea behind Bitcoin banks is that you have these private entities that run nodes, process transactions, do all of these normal things, but they're backed by proofs of reserves, and they are actually like audited, provably solvent, the whole shebang. And they settle transactions on Bitcoin's base layer, as do individuals if they choose to. So having this globally available settlement network really does open up a lot of doors, and it's not just a nicety to. It gives you the option of financial disintermediation, even if that option is a little bit more expensive or a lot more expensive.
No, I completely agree, and I'm a believer of the Bitcoin bank model too, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're changing the narrative, it's supposed to be digital cash, but that's why I was typing. I was pulling up the Hal Finney post on bitcointalk.org, and he posted this on December 30th, 2010. So this idea, and it's Satoshi and other cypherpunks early on when Bitcoin first launched really pointed out that if you want this to scale, you need to do it in layers, or you're going to have some intermediaries like doing transactions on their own servers or something behind the scenes and settling every once in a while. and as long as you can run a full node and verify that the transactions you want to receive, if you want to receive them, are valid, I think we're all Gucci. Just having the ability to do that is the imperative.
Yeah, it's a game changer. And I also, I like L2 stuff too. I think it's very interesting. So Lightning has been on my mind even as it's kind of faded from the dominant narrative a little bit over the last few months. But it's cool.
You, I use Lightning every day.
Yeah,
I love Lightning. As soon as you have I receive Lightning payments every day, and I downloaded Juggernaut earlier this week. I've been using that. Bitcoin Bounty Hunters, which is a video game. BitcoinBountyHunters.com. I put up an ad with Lightning earlier this week for TFTC. I can just put a thumbnail of our podcast image, and you just fund the ad in the video game with Lightning, and it works flawlessly.
That's sick.
It's a lot of people poo-poo Lightning. There's a lot of misconceptions. They're like, oh, there's more Bitcoin to wrap BTC than the Lightning network, and people are like, oh, look at the volume of Bitcoin on Lightning is decreasing rapidly. But again, going back to the hardware, a lot of these out-of-the-box node operators are natively running Lightning through Tor and the nodes through Tor, so you don't see those channels on the charts that they're using. And I think there's a lot more Lightning usage than people actually realize, and things like discrete log contracts coming out in the future, if we get Schnorr and Taproot and stuff like that, are infinitely fascinating from a smart contract perspective.
Yeah, Schnorr and Taproot are awesome. And yeah, to your point, like I think it's not. I'm not gonna diss any products here, but like WBTC to me is not a particularly interesting product just because it is custodied. So it's interesting insofar as seeing Bitcoin banks get built out, but it's not a layer 2 technology by any stretch of the imagination, really. It's just a liability that's represented on Ethereum for assets custodied by BitGo.
I thought it was DeFi.
I think that's TBTC, which I understand a little bit less, but we'll see, man.
Yeah, they had a rough week. Shit. And when they messed up, they didn't have compatible scripts or something like that. They paid a pub key hash or something that was not compatible with the Solidity code.
Yeah, something like that. I was not following that too closely. But yeah, it's crazy. And, it's kind of, we've gone a lot. I've been thinking about this today, just happy pizza day, but we have gone a pretty long way
pizza days, right?
From paying 10,000 Bitcoin for a pizza. So very interested to see kind of where the base layer versus L2 development goes from here.
Yeah. It's always frustrating to see how impatient people are. Like,
I'm with it.
I need it to be like this.
I'm with it. I'm impatient. Like, but, I get it. But yeah, it's unfortunate. It's a work in progress, and it can be painfully slow. But it's important to remember that it's a work in progress and not done yet.
So, what are you most impatient about? Like, what you mentioned layer 2 and Lightning, but what else? Like, what particular use cases or utility do you think is necessary in a quick amount of time?
Like, this isn't really an answer to that. I think the Bitcoin ETF thing kind of showed us how slow financialization in general is going to be. I don't think we're going to get a US based ETF for a very long time. I don't even know if we want one necessarily.
Yeah, like, why would you buy an ETF when you could just buy a UTXO on the Cash App? That's always perplexed me.
It's like nice to be able to use your same account that you use for everything else, right? Like if I have an account at, say, Schwab, it would be really nice to be able to buy a US based ETF just with the same thing. I don't have to transfer money to some shady crypto exchange. And keep in mind, if I'm like, a relatively conservative boomer here, Coinbase is a shady crypto exchange. So it's not even.
Yeah, but why Why are we catering to boomers? They're gonna die soon. Let's think about Gen Z.
They got the cash, man. We need to. I don't know. Like it's one of those things where I think it's being able to use this asset and gaining. I hate this phrase, but getting closer to mass adoption is something that matters to a certain extent. The biggest threat to Bitcoin in my mind isn't hostile nations. It's not game theoretic attacks. It's just sheer apathy.
Yeah. It's I'm right there with you, brother. That saying has been said many times on this podcast. That's my biggest worry is pure apathy. People just don't give a fuck or realize that they should give a fuck. And that's what with this lockdown stuff, it's giving me a little bit more hope that hopefully people won't be as apathetic moving forward. Hopefully more people are questioning why the Fed can print money out of thin air and why it has unlimited cash, and they're starting to ask why they even pay taxes.
Yeah.
And the whole hypocrisy of the elite class is being laid bare.
Yeah. One of the things I have been more impatient about has been waiting for the volatility to come back. I love the volatility, man. It's just fun watching the number go up and then down and then up again. Like, and I think it's a big thing that drew a lot of people to Bitcoin. And I think it's like popular as a pessimistic narrative. It's too volatile to be useful, but I would counter that it's really, like, given how early it is, the volatility is on team good. Yeah.
I need to get in better shape before the volatility comes back. I always get like my heart races. Like in December 2017, it was like there was some moments where it's like, holy shit, man, what the fuck is going on? Like I was working at Barstool and it was pure mania. Like people running around the office, that's all they could focus on. And that, like, if we do have a similar type bull market to an order of magnitude higher price, I can't even imagine what like the global attention and like how much Twitter talk there's going to be about all this stuff.
It's absolutely ludicrous. Like it's I got like into the space in the summer of 2017, so right before this massive pump, and I actually sat it out because I was like, this is just money for degenerates right now. I like this thing. I think it's interesting. There is no way I'm buying at any of these prices. And then it just kept going up. And
well, so let's dive into that. Let's pull on that thread a little bit. Like, what was it like coming in then? Like obviously the ICO boom you're in the thick of it. And so was it hard to sort of get your bearings on the signal through the noise and what was worth paying attention to at this point?
Oh yeah, and I was completely off course, and I think I've taken like the long and winding road to focusing mostly on Bitcoin. Just even like, yeah, it's taken me a while to kind of find my bearings, and I'm still working on it. Like I'm still learning. I know a little bit about mining, but then like yesterday I ended up on someone's Twitter feed or Twitter page. I saw they were talking about like the glue that they use to glue mining hardware together, and I was like, wow, I know literally nothing about mining.
Mining is such a minefield. I mean, I'm in it and I'm still learning more and more every day.
So it's really cool.
Right.
It's one of those things where it's a Trojan horse for learning like about monetary economics and energy consumption and all of that, but it's also just interesting in its own right, and can't wait to learn more.
Yeah. So what sort of helped you on your winding path? What helped you find your bearings? People, literature.
Yeah, I read a lot. I'm not a big fan of books. Personally, I think they're not to diss books, but they're too long for me. But I'm just always on Wikipedia. I'm always reading.
Would this be?
That's
would
an
this be too
absolute
long?
beast. Yeah, I'm always reading, and I think like over time you kind of start to understand a little bit, and just gotta hope that you don't get pulled into the wrong rabbit hole, because that's a huge waste of time. But I still definitely have days where I'm like, wow, this whole Bitcoin thing might be a scam, but they're getting fewer and farther between. So
what are the thoughts that lead to those thoughts, or what leads you to those thoughts?
I don't know. I'll see someone say like something really dumb that's like in favor of Bitcoin, and I'm like, God damn, this is the these are the people on like who support this really like am I on the wrong side here?
Right
But,
now, it is hard sometimes. I mean, it's the double-edged sword of Bitcoin, right? Like anybody can use it, and there's no marketing team.
that's
So
the
you just
beauty.
have,
Yeah.
right. It's it has been interesting to watch. So I've been around since I've been lurking and paying attention since like late 2013, very intently. So it's like Jesus Christ, almost 7 years
That's
now.
crazy, man.
And the comparison to the 2014, 2015, 2016 bear market. So this bear market has been very interesting to watch play out, because back then it was still mainly like on Twitter. Twitter's been my main medium for consuming content and
Same. I just mainline it
about Bitcoin. Yeah, and Twitter back in 2015, 2016 was still all like altcoin traders and a few Bitcoin devs, but it was just basically altcoin traders saying crypto is dead and it's never coming back, and there was like a lack of not consolidation, but effort to make the messaging better. And compared to post 2017, since then, I feel like the amount of quality information education that's been created in that time frame has been a world, like it's night and day compared to the last bear market. So with that in mind, I'm very interested to see what that base layer of like knowledge that's been built out sort of does for the next run. And it's one, like talking about volatility on the other side of a bull market, if we're going into one and it becomes very volatile, do we have as severe crash as we had in the past? Like, are we going to see another 80% drop after the next peak? I'm not so sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say probably, but that's just kind of my gut feeling, is that things pump and then dump. You know, the slower the build up, the slower the crash. So really, if you want to build something sustainable, what you want is like sustained long-term growth, not pumps. But if you're in it for the roller coaster ride, which I personally like, then you want both. So our highs are on average higher than they were, right? Like before 2017, 2018. So
yeah,
I mean, from a price perspective, at least, which I think is just one consideration, like you mentioned, the knowledge, and I would even venture just like the other infrastructure that's around has gotten so much better. But even just from a price perspective, like this run up and even the ensuing crash were good. So I can live with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the on-ramps are better. The data providers like Coinmetrics are better. People can make more educated decisions on entering this stuff. And again, the education's better. It seems like people being able to operate nodes is better. The UX around that, the UX around multi-sig is better. The UX around hardware wallets is better. And my favorite chart to look at is like the price lows of each year. That's always a better indicator, in my opinion.
What have you seen there? That's not one that I've dug into too much.
You just have higher
That's
lows.
sick. That's what you want to see.
Yeah. I think this year and last year it was last year's low, and the low before that were very similar, but so last year's low was what, like 3,500?
Yeah.
Around there. This year, well, 3,800 a wick down on March 12th. So it's a little higher.
And I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that, because like
Higher
derivatives were just not nearly as big of a thing, way back when, and like what, FTX is a year old, and it's kind of crazy watching that build up. That is actually game-changing infrastructure.
I love FTX's mentality of just fuck it, we're gonna create any market.
Yeah, it's sick.
U.S. presidential election markets, let's do it.
Yeah, and they were the first big one to roll out hash rate derivatives. So I think that's like I'm loving that, honestly.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, like who, because BitMEX unregulated, outside of the Seychelles, um, they really led the way for price derivatives, futures, and leverage trading. Up to this point, obviously we have the CME now and more institutional players here, but it seems that these unregulated sort of pirate ship companies really lead the way. And I've been having conversations with more regulated entities trying to bring these hash rate futures to market. It will be interesting to see if FTX just beats them to the punch and paves the way for how to do this correctly. And it'll be actually fascinating if retail investors provide the liquidity for miners to hedge their equipment bets instead of huge family offices and stuff like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, this whole industry feels a lot like gambling a lot of the time. But it's cool. It's also like, yeah, you have these pirate ship companies that kind of show that like it is possible to function outside of regulated markets. And they also have their whole share of horror stories, like every exchange hack and all of that.
Yes.
And exit scams and all that. But it's cool. I think it's a very unique industry, and I love just watching it grow.
No, I got into a debate the other night in a Telegram chat. Like somebody saying like Bitcoin needs Wall Street and needs like regulation to succeed. It's like, no, it doesn't succeed if it needs that. Like you said, it's got to be that black market money. It's got to be able to succeed with pirate ship companies creating products and tools for Bitcoiners to leverage without any permission.
Yeah, and this is probably when I should add that like none of this is the views of my employer.
I think your employer's pretty based.
But yeah, they're cool. But I should probably mention that at least once.
Karim is on here as an individual.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think like it's awesome. It's a unique industry. It's got like a lot more people who are used to dealing with a lot of uncertainty. I think a big part of that is being used to this volatility, and another big part of it is just the inherent randomness of dealing with something so new. So
right, it's fucking alien technology, dude.
Straight up.
We don't even know what we're doing with it. It's like I posted this picture in that conversation I was referencing, like the beginning of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the monkeys are just looking at that huge slab rock. Like, what the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, it's whack. But
and that's like talking about scaling too. Like, yes, I do believe in Bitcoin banks, and I think that is advantageous. But I also think we severely discount potential innovations that could be made in and around the protocol moving forward, like cottage industries for getting transactions included in blocks and efficiencies at the software and hardware level. I think a lot of people, when they think about scaling, sort of pigeonhole themselves into the current state of the network and aren't very imaginative about like externalities that'll help push the success forward in the future.
Yeah, and I think this is where I'm gonna give like a massive shout out to just Join Market. It is like one of the coolest, I don't even know how to describe it, things in existence, because it's not a company, it's an exchange, but it's, you know, like it's its own thing. And Join Market, what it lets you do is it really democratizes privacy. It lets you coin join and get paid to coin join if you have low time preference. And I think it's going to be really cool watching stuff like that get built out for scaling that kind of exists outside of these regulated institutions, and is, you know, like it is a protocol, but it is not a core protocol development.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see Fidelity bonds become more popular and see how people utilize them, and that really strengthens the incentive of that whole
It's going to be dope. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And proof of reserves, like proof of reserves is awesome.
I can hear Eric Voskuil yelling right now. Is it possible? Is it possible? I hope it's possible, right?
I think it's possible. Like, I think the problems come in when you have like the liabilities part. So having clearly the auditor is the weak point in proof of reserves schemes.
So let's flesh this out. Proof of reserves.
Totally.
Explain it like I'm five. I want proof of reserves. I think any Bitcoiner should want them, and that's the big question right now. Is it possible?
Yeah, so just kind of backtracking a little bit, proof of reserves let you prove that you're holding the assets that you claim to hold, and that your reserves in the progressive proof of solvency let you prove that the assets that you're claiming to hold actually exceed the liabilities that you owe to, say, your customers. So the on-chain part of the proof of reserves is fundamentally definitely possible. The proof of liabilities is where you're exposing yourself to this need for an auditor who's a financial auditor, not an on-chain auditor. Financial auditors lie all the time. This is just a fact.
Arthur Anderson.
Yeah.
Rings a bell.
So there's your problem, right? And this isn't something that I think you can fundamentally like protocol around. This is just a problem with corruption. Yeah, it's human error. But generally, we tend to trust auditors also, right? Like you kind of rely on that as a thing of fact, and reputation systems are at play here, and every large company gets audited, and we kind of just rely on that. So I think proof of reserves are not a silver bullet, but to the extent that they are definitely possible, they also definitely help.
I would agree there. And we're seeing this play out with like multi-sig products, like Unchained's loan product. If you want to use Bitcoin as collateral for a US dollar loan, you put it in a multi-sig that you have a key in, and you can always audit that you're not lending your Bitcoin out or something like that to somebody else. So I guess that would be a small form of proof of reserve, just a multi-sig that you can watch during the duration of a loan or something.
No, I would totally count that. It gets a little bit more complicated when you have liabilities that aren't just so proof of reserves are most typically discussed in the context of exchanges, and it gets a little bit more complicated when you add additional liabilities that aren't just to customers. So an exchange could, say, borrow a ton of Bitcoin from a lending desk, pay in fiat, and deposit that Bitcoin into their addresses temporarily, and do the proof of reserves audit, but have this loan kind of off the books, and then just send it back to the lending desk, having conducted the audit, but they never actually had that Bitcoin. Like, they never philosophically owned it. They owed it to someone else. But regularity largely addresses that. So if you just have, like, if you do this weekly or monthly or I don't know how often, you make it a lot harder to pull that off. And that's really what this is all about.
Yes, that's a big knock, right? Is with proof of reserves, you could hypothetically just send coin to an address right before you need to do the audit and be like, here, it's here, and then just give it back or something like that. And so that's like, that's why I imagine like something like a time lock for a certain amount of reserves, not an extended time lock in a months or years, but like weeks and days, like you just said, would make some sense.
Yeah,
right?
that would make sense, especially if the exchange has like or other custodian has cash flows. You kind of expect them not just to be solvent today, you expect them to be solvent next week too. So time locks could definitely help there.
Yeah, it's fascinating. This new financial system's being built out. That's the thing that pissed me off about that conversation. He was like, Bitcoin is part of Wall Street now. It's like, Wall Street leverages Bitcoin and there are products, but it is still a system bereft of the control that the regulators have over Wall Street.
Yeah. I think a lot of Bitcoiners underestimate the degree to which the ecosystem is going to change once Wall Street comes in, but I definitely think we can continue to exist with or without them for a very long time at least.
You think it's gonna be drastic?
Yeah, I think like my kind of, this is a bit of a tin hat theory here, but tinfoil hat theory. But I think we're going to start to see a lot of walled gardens within Bitcoin, where you have this highly KYC'd, like, kind of the equivalent of like diamond markets or gold. This is blood diamond free Bitcoin. It was mined by an affiliate of NASDAQ or something like that. And this is these 100 Bitcoins are the ones that the banks keep circling between themselves forever. And all the other Bitcoin trades at a significant discount to this like clean Bitcoin. I think that's possible. I would ideally like to not see that.
Would it trade at a discount or a premium?
I think your dirty plebe Bitcoin would probably trade at a discount to like like highly KYC Bitcoin that the bankers are willing to gamble on, right?
Yeah. See, fuck, man. Because again, I've been having conversations with mining pools too. I sort of want this like white label mining pool where it's like, hey, you're mining to this pool with people that are regulated and KYC'd, and I really don't like that concept. The permission, I feel like that's an attack vector.
I completely agree with you, but it's one possible universe, right? I think, and I think like Wall Street coming in is going to be a headache, and people don't seem to fully get that.
Yeah, Karim. This is why we need to fight to get Bitcoin labeled as free speech on Capitol Hill.
Yeah,
it solves all these problems.
Totally. Right. But hey, I mean, we'll all buy Lambos in the process, I think. So, can deal.
I want the freedom. I don't want the money. Will be nice, but fuck, man.
Yeah.
I don't want all this control. And again, all this KYC AML laws. We talk about this on this podcast a lot. They do more fucking harm than good. We found that out this week with BlockFi. Like, you have a bunch of Bitcoiners whose physical addresses are on the dark net market right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the cool things about Bitcoin is that it lets you transact with other people with them knowing as close to the exact minimum possible about you as possible, right?
Yeah, we had an example of that this week too, when those coins moved from the Coinbase of that block from February 2009. Everybody's like, oh, it's a bummer we can see who this is. It's like, well, do you know who it is?
Yeah.
Like, everybody's just guessing.
No, it's insane. Like, I'll go into like buy coffee or something, and they get my name, my credit card number, which they can use to spend my money, and literally everything else about me. And Bitcoin kind of lets you not do that, and that's kind of cool. So it's unfortunate that through KYC and through regulation, that's kind of been largely compromised for the trading use case, at least.
Yeah. Talking about like the U.S. wanting to bring the Chinese surveillance state here. Like it seems more and more like these draconian laws, man. They do more harm than good. These people want to control you. They fucking hate us. They hate us, Karim.
Yeah, it's pretty uncool. I'm not super with it. And like the unfortunate part is it's completely it applies to everyone on Earth, basically, right? The U.S. government pressured more or less every single country's banks to accept like surveillance from American law enforcement. So there really isn't any hiding from it. And they're the big guys with the guns, so they're gonna you kind of just got to do what they say. But it's unfortunate that they're saying stuff that we don't really like.
Karim, what kind of mentality is that? We're supposed to be Americans. It's supposed to be land of freedom.
I am like anyone who's talked to me. I love this country so much, but it's this like world police thing is just really not what. It's thoroughly un-American in my mind. Our whole country is built on the concept of leaving other people alone. So
I agree. Yeah, we police the world so much. Venezuela just had to fucking ship 9 jets worth of gold to Iran because they couldn't send them a wire transfer. Not that I agree with the governments of Venezuela or Iran, but it is. I don't like the regimes at all, but they have trickle-down effects where it affects the individual citizens within these countries, and they tend to be good people, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying. Like we're talking about how we don't like tyranny here. It doesn't make sense that we'd be pro these two countries that are some of the most oppressive regimes in the world. But yeah, it's just like it makes it hard to do normal stuff if you're just a normal person, and that sucks.
Yeah. Bitcoin for the common man, by the common man. Buy some stats, stack some sats today.
Yeah.
I've got to get going here soon. It's been a fascinating conversation. What is there anything you guys are doing at Coinmetrics outside the hash rate index and your research into mining hardware and nonce data that you want to touch on?
If you need data at all, just hit us up. We have some of the highest quality network data and market data available, cover a ton of assets, a ton of metrics on top of those, and it's highly reliable. So if you're an exchange, miner, lending desk, whatever, we're your guys, you know.
And a couple more things. Where can we find out more about you? And tell me more about your fascination with deadpan humor and comedy.
Totally. I am at Karim Helmy on Twitter, HELPME. Not how I usually spell my last name. And I just like dumb jokes, man. And I like convincing people that the dumb jokes, I like playing the line between I'm joking and I'm serious. I don't like changing my facial expression too much. It bothers everyone around me to no end, but get my kicks from it. So,
so who's your favorite comedian?
My favorite comedian
would be
damn, I can't really choose. But it's not really a comedian in the traditional sense. But I've been watching a lot of Parks and Recs recently, just while I've been in quarantine, and it's funny. It's a good show. So, yeah.
It's been a quarantine show for me as well.
Yeah, love that Ron Swanson energy. Honestly, if you're talking about Johnny America, like.
I want to make sure you understood me when I said all the eggs and bacon. I mean all the eggs and bacon.
I watched that episode 2 nights ago.
One of the most base characters on network TV to ever exist.
What a beast.
Yeah. Well, Karim, it's been fascinating getting to know you a little bit. That was just a drive run first interaction outside of DMs. I was very happy we made it happen. Thank you for the research you're doing at Coinmetrics, what you guys are doing at Coinmetrics. I think you guys have incredible data, incredible product, and a dedication to Bitcoin that is needed. And keep crushing it, bro.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for having me on. This is my first podcast appearance, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't too torturous for you.
Nah, we're chilling. All right.
Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Take care.
Peace and love, freaks.